Drive when you have time available, because your greatest enemy is time. You don't want to feel rushed, and because when you feel rushed, we make mistakes. Doesn't matter if I'm working in the shop or if I'm driving a commercial vehicle. Rushing doesn't help anyone, and we make mistakes when that happens. And so, if you keep the left door closed and get your miles, or that's how we pay our drivers, by the mile, it benefits them. And spending a lot of time at a truck stop or unauthorized stops or not leaving when you should, that all affects your time. And like I said, that's your greatest enemy. So keep the left door closed and don't get in a hurry.
Welcome to another edition of
Just Truck It.
I put you on the spot on
I
that
know.
one.
I almost forgot what we were called for 5 seconds.
Well, that's a shame.
I know.
Especially with all the great information that we've done here lately.
I know. So many awesome people.
Yeah, we just had Derek Lathers, the CEO of Warner Enterprises. Yep, the president. That was a good one. And today we got another great one in the works.
I know. I'm so excited to hear all about this.
Yes.
Because I didn't know this existed.
Oh, well, and then this is going to be a good one for everybody. Well, welcome to episode 16. Today we have a special guest, Jon Wildish. He is the Senior Vice President of Titan Transfer Incorporated. Welcome to the show, Jon. How you doing today?
Thanks for letting me be here today. I'm doing great.
Good. Glad to hear it. Well, tell us about how you got into the trucking industry. What do you like about it, and what you're doing now?
Right. So as a young boy, I always liked the big trucks, but I never thought I'd be in the trucking industry. Yeah. Doing that down the highway for sure.
Right.
And thought my career was going to be in law enforcement. I was in the military, did security, police, and Air Force. I got out, was on the sheriff's department, was on the police department, thought I had a career in law enforcement, but things changed, circumstances changed, and I had an opportunity to start in a training program for an LTL company called Goggin Truck Line in the early 90s. And started there, and then just fell in love with the trucks again, and have been in and out of the trucking company for the last 28 years. And so, but primarily here at Titan for the last 9. And it's been a great run, and continue to look to do more things.
Awesome. So what is your role there at Titan?
Right. So as Senior Vice President, my primary responsibility is for the overall risk management of the company. So the risk that you incur with hiring drivers, so recruiting is part of my role. The risk that you take in the safety aspect of transportation. So safety is one of my responsibilities as well. Security, the risk that we have in security, whether it be building security or personnel security. So that falls under my realm as well. And then some of the risks and the costs that are associated with our maintenance of our trucks and trailers. And so maintenance reports to me as well. So those areas that I focus on.
So what's the biggest hurdle you have?
Wow.
How big of a hat he's wearing.
I know, like, I just can't even, I mean, I can think of, one for recruiting for sure, driver shortage, and then safety, and like, what's the biggest one you think?
He's wearing a 10-gallon hat on his head.
Well, I think really, you could call it recruiting, but it's really about selecting that new driver coming into the industry, because really they touch all of those points that kind of falls under risk, coming in and making sure that they have a good driving record, or at least a good record in the past if they haven't driven before. Then, they move over into the truck. And so they're responsible for, the maintaining of the truck while it's out on the road and making sure they take care of it. So there's a maintenance aspect to that. Yeah. And then obviously operating the truck safely. And then working safely, because workers' compensation also falls under my realm. And then, security of the cargo. And so really trying to select that right person to put behind the wheel of the truck.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll tackle a little bit here one at a time, because obviously I hear HVP and I'm going, ooh, I can't wait to get into that part. High value loads, high value priority.
I was like, what?
Yeah. But
more
first,
acronyms.
I know, and I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of questions about that. But
Yeah,
first
I'm excited about that one.
The drivers, and hiring the drivers. What areas are you looking at? So how do you determine if this driver is going to be a good fit for you guys or not? Like, what are you looking at? How if I just don't put anything down and say I did nothing, you shouldn't find it, right? That's how some view it. So explain to us what you're looking at and how you're grading the driver.
Right. So, we run, just like most all other trucking companies, numerous reports, whether it be the MVR or the PSP, a criminal background.
What's PSP?
What's a PSP? Yeah. Sorry.
You gotta explain the acronyms.
All of them.
Right. So the PSP is a record of all of your commercial driving activity. If you received any violation or any inspections, any DOT recordable crashes. So all of that commercial driving experience is going to show up on that PSP. On an MVR, it would be mostly non-commercial. It could be some commercial on there, but non-commercial on your motor vehicle record from the state, which is associated with your driver's license. So
that makes sense.
So we're running these reports. Our recruiters interview on the phone. I have a new system now that we can video call, and we can actually see the driver or the applicant. We can send a link to their phone, so they don't have to have FaceTime or anything like that. We can send them a link, and it connects their phone camera to our camera, and so we can actually see them face to face now, and they can see us. And so that helps us.
Yeah.
Right. It's a really cool tool that we have now. And
that's I don't mean to stop you right there, but that just to touch on that, that's huge, because I've been with in recruiting for a long time back and with trucking companies, and it was always, on the phone, you just talking on the phone about everything, and then you put them in orientation. You're supposed to show. If they don't show, you just go off that. And then I worked for a company where they were very strict about, we have to have an interview with that driver, whether whatever terminal was going to be at, we had to go to that terminal and do that interview there with them. And then obviously with COVID, we started doing them by Zoom calls and whatnot. But that's huge, because you get to create a rapport with that individual, and also feel out from both sides if it's a good fit. I think that's huge.
Right. Body language says a lot. We all do that and communicate that way. And, they get to see us, we get to see them. And it's an easy tool, because they don't have to have a certain app on their phone to communicate, or FaceTime, or be in front of a computer like we are today. They can just get a link, tap on the link from their on a text, and we're connected with that driver or applicant. So, really trying to find out if that driver, number one, is safe. I mean, that's their work experience. If they don't have any driving experience, we have road trainers that can, we can put them in a training program with our road trainers. It's a 6-week program. So we really try and see through questions, are they going to be, number one, safe, and then, be a good fit for the company. So.
Right. Now, one thing that I had did, or done, I can't even speak English correctly today, is
need coffee.
When they're filling out the applications, they're required to put down their work history, right? You guys have to verify, the work history that they were at before. And you're also submitting information to those companies to give you feedback, which they will say whether they had any incidences with them and how long they worked with them, if they lived on good terms, so on and so forth. But sometimes when those things are left out, I've used the PSP, which is a history of all their, commercial driving with inspections and things, to verify, also the work history, because, oh, you didn't tell me about this company, and then this company's on your PSP, or hey, you said you you worked here for this period, but I see you are still working here during this. It helps unmuddy the waters, so to speak.
Right. And I would recommend to any driver that's watching, any new driver or new person that wants to get in the industry, always give full disclosure, because most companies, including Titan Transfer, can typically work through some of those problematic areas that they've had before, and that's why they left it off their application.
Right.
And so we have these multiple reports to really find out. So don't hide anything.
Yeah.
Be transparent. We know there's always two sides to a story. You have an employee side, driver side, and the employer, the trucking company side. So we're not always taking one side or the other. We're going to put a pragmatic look at the whole situation. But it's always best to fully disclose, because when you hide it, that really sends up a red flag. And if you left a company off your application, but they're on your PSP, and it showed maybe in those inspection time periods you were with them 6 or 7 months and not just a week, and then you forgot about it, that's really problematic. And typically we can't proceed further with an applicant like that. So full disclosure is always best, because you can usually work through those difficult areas you may have had in your work history.
Right. So
That makes sense.
that's always huge. A lot of individuals think they can hide it or not talk about it, but they don't realize that the trucking companies and all of their reports that they get to run, they're going to find it.
That's right.
It's one thing if it was 3+ decades ago versus if it was, especially in the last 10 years, they're going to find it. It's out there. Everything is reported.
I mean, we even tell our students, if you don't remember anything, just go pull your own background check.
Yeah.
Pull your own MVR, so that we can make sure the trucking company won't catch it before we do, because then they'll just think you're a liar, and nobody wants that.
Right. It's always good to keep a record. Hopefully you don't have a whole lot of jobs, because that's another red flag. But if you just keep a record, because we all forget dates and time periods and those types of things. So just keep a good record of them. Put it in your phone, or put it on, document in a book or notepad or something.
Yeah. Keep your resume updated. Keep your dentistry or driver reach application updated, whatever one you have. Keeping those updated are huge.
Yeah. And people have to remember, like, trucking is an actual career. It's not just, gonna do I don't want to put anything else down, but doing something else. But this is actual career, just like a doctor, a lawyer, professional career.
It is a professional career. Yes.
And that's why you need to just keep up to date. So that definitely, that's good advice for our students and our current drivers.
Yeah,
for sure.
That are watching, all the current ones. So obviously we covered the driving side, and then you're talking about the hiring the individuals. What, as far as obviously with the safety side of it, the training and areas that you guys see that you have to focus on to keep everyone safe out there after you've hired that individual?
Right. So some of those areas that we focus on after we've hired somebody in the training areas is, I believe, due to just congestion of the highways, and that's following too close and lane changes. And if anybody's been driving a truck for any period of time, they understand about people cutting them off, but they've seen the traffic congestion increase nationwide, and the road system just hasn't kept up with it. And so there's more cars on the road, less space, and so following too close becomes an issue. So we have to focus on that. And then lane changes. It's so hard sometimes for a driver to make a legitimate legal lane change because of all the non-professional drivers that are around them. And so it frustrates us, as we see sometimes in our camera systems, or we get stories from our drivers. It just frustrates even us in the office that what they're having to go through. And
absolutely.
That's why we implement at Titan Transfer technology that helps the driver with lane changes, with blind spots. We want it, and that's the kind of emphasis that we put on those lane changes so that it can be safe. We have crash mitigation technology in our trucks to help them with following too close. And so it alerts the driver, and then it will actually brake for the driver if the driver is distracted, incapacitated possibly. So the truck will be able to stop.
Awesome. Yeah. Now,
Oh.
tell us about the camera systems and, because that's a huge issue for drivers on both sides. Some do understand that it's there to protect them, but a lot are like they're uneducated about it. Especially even new drivers are like, I don't want someone watching me as I'm changing my clothes in the back. I don't want someone watching me as I'm driving all day. They don't understand what the parameters are of that truck and that camera system.
Right. So yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions about the cameras in the trucks, and each camera system operates somewhat differently. We chose a system that does not record all the time. It has to be triggered by something happening in the truck, whether that's a hard brake or hard acceleration, a hard left turn or a hard right turn, or impact to the vehicle if it's strong enough. So there actually has to be something happen to the vehicle in order for the camera to be able to start recording, and we get about a 20-second clip.
Okay.
All of those instances that I just told you really depend on the driver, except for possibly impact, unless they strike something. So if somebody hits them, it's not their fault. But the hard acceleration or the hard brake or the hard left turn or right turn are really, for the most part, the driver's in control of those things. And so if they don't like the camera being triggered, then we want them to correct their driving behavior. And so it's kind of self-correcting. As I mentioned, we have a camera system that's trigger based. It's only 20 seconds. We tell our drivers, if it makes you feel more comfortable, you can cover the camera when the truck's not in motion. It's not going to be turning on. We can't live feed into it. We can't look and watch. We're way too busy, even if it could do that. But we have a system that can't even do that. We don't have the time.
John's like, I don't got time for that.
Right.
Exactly.
Because
So,
I don't know. It depends on the size of the fleet, but I mean, I remember running a state department for a fleet of 70, 100 trucks, and it was so much with just all of that data coming in, those to watch all those, then to see how what's happening, understand it, and then go, okay, is this a teachable moment? Is this a coaching moment? Is this something I gotta work on with the driver? Or is this something that the driver just couldn't avoid and they had to, and then, or they swerved or something to avoid hitting somebody or something, and congratulate them on such a good job of running that truck. But how many typical incidents or triggers do you get in a day that you guys have to go through?
Oh.
Ones that we need to coach, we get about 1,600 a month, 14 to 1,600 a month. And so that's spread out among 25 driver managers. And so there's about 15 behaviors that we've identified with our camera vendor to alert us when this behavior is observed. All of these events are observed by the third party, and then they're designated. Some have different levels, but the ones that we really focus on and coach, there's about 15 different behaviors. All of those behaviors fall in the unsafe category with the CSA: seat belts, speeding. Typically the speeding's only observed if there's a speed limit sign in the video clip, so we don't get a whole lot of those. Cell phone, but once again, in order to see that behavior, there had to be a hard brake or a hard acceleration, hard left turn or right turn, or impact to the vehicle.
Right.
Sometimes bridge seams, when a truck drives over that bridge seam and bounces a little bit, it'll set the camera off. If the driver's not doing anything wrong, we won't see that.
Right.
And we try and coach for improvement. We always want to say that we're trying to make good drivers better. We can all get better in our jobs no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And so that's all we're trying to encourage those drivers to do. Number one, it keeps them safer, keeps others on the road safe. It keeps their record clean. And so it's really just a positive. We had a little difficulty introducing our camera system to our fleet. We did this in 2014. So we've had cameras for quite a while. But there were a lot of misconceptions about what the camera could do, what it had capable of. And of course, We had some drivers that would just listen to anybody at a truck stop and believe that.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't believe the company that they've been working for 3 or 4 years. So
Right.
we had to overcome.
Doo-doo.
Right. But I always tell drivers that cameras are kind of like your insurance for your car. You don't like paying for it every month, but when you need it, you're glad you have it. And so we've had I can't even count it, the many of the driver exonerations that we've had where, it looked like the driver's fault, but or appeared to be from the information. But then when you watch the video, the driver's cleared of any wrongdoing. And I
Nice.
always remind our drivers too, there was a study by the University of Michigan in 2013, right before we put cameras in, that said 80% of the time when a big truck and a car have a crash, it's the car's fault. And so, we as an industry, we as a trucking company, we need to communicate that to the public
I love
and
that.
to politicians who are making laws without any concept or really full understanding of what drivers go through day in and day out, or what the trucking industry is all about. And
Yeah,
so,
they just see this huge vehicle and think about the devastation it can cause.
right.
And then go, okay, well, if that happened and obviously it's that person's fault, when a lot of people realize forget to realize that they're a professional, they've been trained, they've been doing this, they're paid to do this,
Right.
versus an
Professionally
individual that's
trained
hurrying up
driver
to get there.
in that vehicle, and there's not one in the passenger car.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. What was that percentage? 85%?
80%.
80.
University of Michigan, and the study came out in 2013. Smart Drive camera system, they promote that statistic in their material. But 80% of the time when there's a big truck and a passenger vehicle, it's the car's fault.
And
Well, it would
it's
make
huge help.
sense.
It's a huge help, especially with the nuclear verdicts that are out there on companies where they don't just come for a couple $1,000s or $100,000 or $1 million. Even they're going for tens and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, of course.
From a company, over something that even wasn't even the driver's fault. So
Right.
That's those
the frustrating
cameras
part.
Yeah.
That you're in a crash. It's frustrating for the driver, obviously, and frustrating for the company. And we have material evidence that shows the driver was not at fault, but you're still wind up in litigation because somebody wants the dollar. And
Yeah.
so
Yes.
that the cameras do help. So going into that that side of things, tell us more about your day-to-day with risk management and what the obviously the goal is to save the company and the drivers money, as well as keep everyone safe
And happy.
and happy, which can be very difficult. Now that we've covered the recruiting and sort of the safety side, tell us more about your day-to-day.
Okay, so my day-to-day is primarily strategic, and our concept is communicate, educate, and remediate. So communicating your safety message, making sure it's consistent, making sure we communicate the regulations properly, educate our drivers on that, whether it's in orientation or our ongoing safety training. And then if there is a violation or there is a preventable crash, then we remediate, or remedial training, go back through training. What was the crash about? What was the violation about? And then we tailor that training to address that particular topic. And so, so making sure that the safety department is following that motto and message, evaluating our policies and procedures. And then also looking at from an insurance side, what does our losses look like for the past 5 years? Where are we having those losses? What type of crash is it? And then we get down to the driver. Did the driver have enough training? How many years of experience did the driver have? What did their record look like? Are there any consistencies with these preventable crashes that are costing the company a lot of money? Are there any consistencies or trends with the type of driver? And it's kind of coincidental that we're having this conversation because I'm in the process of, I did this about 7 years ago, and I'm in the process, just started this morning, of doing that again, looking at the last 5 years and seeing if we need to change our communication, our education, to make sure that we are proactive in reducing those losses.
So I have a question. Do you have more times you need to educate or remediate for students or newer drivers, or do you have that more for the older drivers?
That is a great question, because
Yay. I'm listening.
The first inclination is to think the new driver's having all the crashes.
Right?
The new driver's getting all the violations at the inspection station because they don't know anything about the truck yet. But that's not the fact. So we're seeing our fleet, drivers that have 2 to 5 years service with us. So that could be all the experience they have, or in addition to the experience they have, that get the violations and that are having the crashes. Now, that doesn't mean they have a higher percentage. That doesn't mean that no person that came through our training program didn't have a crash, but the percentage of the fleet, the percentage of the drivers is really falling in that 2 to 5. We've had several discussions with our safety team about that. Without putting some empirical data in place, the consensus is that there's a complacency, exactly, that the driver may get.
Yeah.
They feel comfortable, they've made it through that kind of probationary time period, whether it's with the company or as a driver.
And they haven't had that scare yet to remind them to, hey, keep this up.
Right, because I've always said driving a little nervous is good. Too nervous is bad.
It's like a motorcycle. You buy the really small one and you get, oh man, this is easy, and then you start doing crazy stuff on it.
Right.
And that's how you fall.
And that's that's really how they want you to move up in the size to keep going, so that way you still have that fear of it. That's what they teach you with motorcycles.
That makes sense.
It's the same thing.
That little bit of nervousness keeps you sharp.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense because we interviewed a student who went through our school, and one of the things his trainer told him was never get comfortable in your truck. Mm-hmm. And even though he was training, or his trainer was training him, he even said, I still try to maintain focus. I'm still a little nervous because I can hit anybody, and along those lines. So I see that.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit with Tim Clark as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tim from Big G.
I do know Tim. Tim's a great guy.
He's a wonderful guy. And since she asked that question, I know this is kind of sideways here. We're moving sideways. But since you stated the data on new versus experienced, what do you see as far as retention rates, new versus experienced?
Ooh.
I would say, without going back and looking at the data currently, that we're having a little bit more turnover with our newer drivers.
Okay.
Really? I'm surprised to hear that, because it's usually the other way around.
Right. And the reason I say that, I think that once they get trained and get their experience and get what we've been experiencing, is they get their feet wet, they're feeling comfortable. So now they start searching for what else is out there.
Right.
Because I was new, I didn't know a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I came to this company, they trained me, they gave me my own truck, I'm out making money, supporting my family, myself. And then they get comfortable with the industry and they're like, okay, let me venture out a little bit. Let me look at other places. And that's why we believe at Titan Transfer that our relationships are so important. And so that helps with retention. And so, we want to build relationships with the drivers. We want them to retire here. And we want to treat them well.
That's good, because, Derek at Werner was stating that he saw the same thing, kind of with drivers, but we talked about the grass not being greener and realizing, that sometimes that was a bad decision because you're also losing your wages for, in the transition, you're losing money. Sometimes you have to start back over in a little bit more training again because you haven't done that much time anywhere else. And then it starts hurting your potential of future jobs because the more jobs you have, obviously, the harder it is to get that good job you really want in the future. And so their number one hire, as far as their data, the number one hire that they have is not, a new driver, not an experienced driver from somewhere else, is hiring back the ones that they used to have employed there that have left and now are coming back.
And we love our rehire situation here at Titan Transfer. And we love it when a driver wants to come back because they did venture out. They did try and see if grass was greener on the other side. And they may have got a little bit more money, maybe not. But overall, their driver experience at that other place was not what they had come to expect at Titan. So we're kind of proud of that. We have an email system that sends out the rehire, and all the departments get to respond to that about the driver coming back. And sometimes it's exciting to see some of the drivers that we were sad to see go, but glad that they came back.
Yeah, awesome. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then, so, the next thing that, I kind of want to ask about is there's usually when hauling freight for drivers, there's always the questions about safety for them. And since you are in, that aspect as well, what do you see as far as that goes? Because, I had always stated, well, let's use common sense. Let's not park somewhere in the truck stop where there's no lighting and I have to walk in between vehicles. Go where you have to walk in the light. Let's not keep our windows down while rolling through, Chicago or Miami in the middle of the night with our windows down and our doors unlocked, or, if I'm hauling a certain type of load that is considered high value, following a certain route, that if by doing certain things, I can be safe. But is there really a need to worry that much?
Well, we're always concerned about our driver's safety, obviously. But everything that you just mentioned there is typically what we would do outside of the truck, right? I mean, we're not going to walk in dark areas or dark alleys, and so we shouldn't drive in those areas. And I think, and we tell drivers all the time, pre-planning, and new drivers too. You just don't jump in the truck and try and follow a GPS. That will get you in trouble. You've got to plan your route. You need to know map reading, because GPSs are inherently bad when it comes to trucks. Even a trucker's GPS will get you in a low bridge or a place you're not supposed to be.
Too many times.
So pre-plan. It helps in so many different areas. And one of those is security. Know where you're going to stop. Don't wait till you're 30 minutes before your 14's up or your 11's up, and you're rushing to find a place, and everything's already full. I've heard this before. Everything was full. I had to park on the side of the road. No, you don't park there. And so you've got to plan, and taking the extra time to do that will help you be a safer driver, non-driving. And so we encourage our drivers to do that. Those things that you just mentioned. We have a protocol to follow with a high value load, that they get messaged to the truck to follow those guidelines, follow the designated route. We use a service that helps us keep up to date with cargo thefts in our freight lanes. And so when we have a stop that is red, or there's a lot of theft going on, according to our service, we'll alert our drivers. And so back a couple of years ago, when they were stopping trucks in the middle of the road, and that was a big concern for us as well. So we were communicating our drivers on things that they could do to avoid those things. So safety for the driver out on the road is a big concern for us, and we communicate that and have several different ways to communicate to our fleet, not only through the mobile comm that's in the truck, but we have monitors throughout our terminal that display information. We have all of our drivers on an email system that we can alert them through. So there's a lot of different ways that we can communicate those safety messages to them.
So I kind of want to backtrack just a little bit.
Sure.
There really is people who steal trailers, like I don't know. When you said that, I thought of like Fast and Furious, like or
right.
like there's actually people.
It doesn't really happen like that on the road, so to speak. It's more or less in parking areas. Am I not correct?
That's right. We've not had a hijacking where they actually take the driver out of the truck or hijack it while it's trying to be moving. But typically, cargo thieves will steal an empty trailer. First, they steal a truck that they can find.
Okay.
They'll go hook to an empty trailer, and then go steal freight, or steal a truck, find a loaded trailer that's dropped somewhere, and steal that trailer. That's why we have a policy that we never disconnect unless you're on a yard, a customer's yard or a Titan yard. They don't want to mess with those, but there's been instances that have been reported where a driver dropped a loaded trailer of tires in an abandoned parking lot and then drove his truck home and came back the next morning. He was surprised that the trailer was gone. So
I would kind of be too.
Or doors open and everything's out of it.
That's right. Exactly. And so, drivers have to deal with that pilfering where they're at a truck stop. That's why you want to park in well-lit areas. When you back up on that back line and it's dark, probably every trailer on that line, the doors are going to be at least opened, and they're going to look and see what's inside that they can take.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that's why they make special trailer locks. They make, kingpin locks. If you drop it, they make locks that go on the back to hold it. Using those kind of devices is always huge and beneficial.
Okay. Well, I didn't know there was a market out there for this.
Yeah, unfortunately it's a very big market.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why they have routes. For high value loads, they're going to specifically route individuals on with that, knowing that it might be a little bit more mileage. Yeah, it might be a little bit, more out of the way going this way or that, but it prevents them from going through areas that are known to have those issues.
Yeah.
And I would encourage your new drivers that follow the route. Don't go out of route. Nothing good can come from going out of route. Number one, probably a company policy or some kind of correction from the company. But unfortunately, we've had a driver, they were out of route on a bad road and had a crash. Had they stayed on their route, but they wanted to take a shortcut that they knew about, but it wasn't really made for trucks. And so always stay on route and follow the route. You can't go wrong by doing that. If something happens, then the company is going to support you because you stayed on the route.
So tell us, to wrap all this up, what tips or tricks do you have for drivers out there and other professionals that are doing your career? So the two different sides.
I would say, number one, keep the left door closed. That means drive when you need to drive.
Okay.
Drive when you have time available. Because your greatest enemy is time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to feel rushed. And because when you feel rushed, we make mistakes. Doesn't matter if I'm working in the shop or if I'm driving a commercial vehicle. Rushing doesn't help anyone, and we make mistakes when that happens. And so if you keep the left door closed and get your miles, or that's how we pay our drivers, by the mile, it benefits them. And spending a lot of time at a truck stop or unauthorized stops or not leaving when you should, that all affects your time. And like I said, that's your greatest enemy. So keep the left door closed and don't get in a hurry.
Makes sense. I love it. I love it.
And what about for other professionals out there that are in your kind of same field or whether they're, an entry person in that side of safety or recruiting, or they're a vice president of risk management like yourself? What advice would you give them?
I would always adhere to my philosophy of resourcing to the risk. So when you have a safety program, you can do a whole lot of things. But if you're doing a whole lot of things, you may not get anything done. So you need to identify where your greatest risk is. You may identify all of them, but you can't address all of them. So take those that have the greatest risk, have the best return if you fix them, and then put your resources, your time, your money, your communication, your emphasis, your importance on those areas, and get those fixed first. And then you can move down the list of the other items that you may have identified. But trying to do everything at the same time, you're probably not going to get very much accomplished.
Right.
Man, Jon, you've been dropping bomb after bomb. I have a whole bunch of notes. It is great info that you have given us.
Absolutely.
I love it. You're welcome. All right, mister.
Well, I guess, want to thank you for coming on here. It's been a pleasure, obviously, for
It's
us.
been great.
Yes.
I appreciate the time. It's great talking to you.
Absolutely.
And to know you more.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we'll have to see each other soon.
Right.
Another
Obviously.
R&R.
Yep. And, thanks again. Make sure that, do your spill. I don't want to take that away from you.
Subscribe, like, comment. Let us know if you have any questions for Jon. We'll reach out to him and force him to comment on them. But let us know if you have any more questions or what was your favorite part. Because I'm telling you, there was communicate, educate, remediate, always give full disclosure, follow the route.
So many
resourcing to the risk. I mean, it goes on, man.
Absolutely.
So comment, like us, subscribe to us.
Stay tuned for the next episodes. Go back, watch some previous ones.
Yes.
Let's do it. Have a good day, everybody.